the chats will be recorded. So even if you're chatting to someone personally, that also is recorded while we are recording. This webinar will be available on Micah's YouTube channel after the date if you want to pass it along to anyone else to watch. But with that, I'm going to pass it along to today's facilitator, Jason Weller, the coordinator for Michigan's campaign to end homelessness.
Thanks, Allison. You stole my thunder. I was going to introduce myself, but now I don't have to. So welcome, everybody. Allison is facing some technological issues today, so she tapped me in to help out with facilitating today's webinar. So a couple of housekeeping things. As Allison already mentioned, today's session is being recorded. And we do have everybody on mute. And so if you have questions, we are going to ask that you ask those via the chat. Allison and I will be keeping tabs. And so we have two presenters today, and the presentations, it's all under one umbrella, but if you have questions during, Cheryl is going to present first, and if you have questions during her section, please drop those in the chat, and she'll have time to field those, and then we'll hand things off to Courtney. So anyway, so there's lots of opportunity to have some dialogue and discussion here. And then the last thing is, if you're having any issues with the audio or video connection, unfortunately with Zoom, really the best thing to do is log out and log back in and give this system a reset, and things will hopefully be working better for you. So housekeeping issues aside, I think let's switch over to introduce our two presenters. So we have Cheryl Bergman and Courtney Louis from Michigan's Women's Commission. I'm going to hand things off to Cheryl first. Cheryl, the floor is all yours.
Thank you. First of all, thank you so much to Allison and Jason for inviting us to talk about the women in the Michigan workforce, where we're at right now, and in light of the pandemic. And some things that we're working on to hopefully get women back into the workforce. So, and I saw the question in the chat. So the one thing that I'm looking forward to this week is the Michigan Women's Commission is holding its final public meeting of the year tomorrow in Flint. So excited about that. And we do, just in case anybody is in Flint and would like to stop by, it's 1 to 3 at the Sylvester Broom Empowerment Center in Flint. And there's all the details on our website. So I'm going to go ahead and get started and share my screen with all of you. Some way that I can make this from the beginning. Yeah. So the coalition, Allison and Jason asked us to be here today to talk to you a little bit about how we can support women in the workplace in Michigan. And I would like to give you a little bit of background about the Women's Commission first to help give this conversation some context. So the Women's Commission was established by statute in 1968 with the mission of surveying the women of Michigan, identifying problems they face, making policy recommendations to address those problems, and to recognize the accomplishments of women in Michigan. It's a 15-member commission, all appointed by the governor. And our commission currently represents all regions of the state, including the Upper Peninsula. And in fact, our commissioner, Whitney Gravel, was just from the UP, was just reelected as the chairwoman of the Bay Mills Indian community. And they have an all-women female tribal council, which is the first time that has ever happened in the history of the Bay Mills Indian community. So that's pretty exciting. So when I started this position at the end of 2019, Governor Whitmer said, let's survey the women of Michigan. Let's find out what their priorities are. So we hit the road at the end of 2019 and early 2020, before we were shut down with the pandemic, and talked to women around the state to find out what their priorities are. And wherever we went, from Detroit to Traverse City, Grand Rapids to Flint, it was all economic security issues, with affordable, accessible childcare being at the top of the list. And this is before the pandemic hit. So these conversations informed the Michigan Women's Commission's current initiatives, which include, and we have, these are our working committees as well, Unlocking Opportunities, which unlocks opportunities for women to be participate fully in the workforce. So we are very focused in that committee and in our work on childcare. And you'll hear a little bit more about one specific project that we're working on, which is TriShare. We're also focused on in that paid leave is something that's a priority. Our Financial Freedom Committee is looking at pay equity and pathway to higher wage jobs. Our Visible Authentic Leadership Committee is focused on promoting visible, authentic leadership of women in all sectors, including the corporate sector, elected office, academia, nonprofit, just promoting more women leadership at all levels. And we also formed a committee on implicit bias awareness, which internally we focus on making sure that we are aware of any kind of bias that may come up in our policies that we're recommending. And then outwardly, we have we launched a 21-day racial equity challenge that the Michigan League for Public Policy actually created, and we borrowed it from them and partnered with them. And we hold these 3-week sessions. And at the end of each week, we do a learning cohort with the women and sometimes some men who participate in these. And I think so far we've had nearly 300 women go through this 21-day racial equity challenge with us. And I believe we're launching another one in January. And the information about that is on our website as well, if anyone's interested in signing up and participating in the next learning cohort. So in March of this year, the Department of Technology Management and Budget in the state created a report of women in the Michigan workforce. And we released that report at an event that we held with Governor Whitmer in March during Women's History Month. And at that time, the report showed that approximately 136,000 women have left the workforce entirely since February 2020 in Michigan, and that unemployment for Michigan is 4 times higher than the pre-pandemic rate. As of today, well, actually as of July, I don't have an updated number for today, but as of July, that number has increased to approximately 229,300, to be more exact, women who've left the workforce. So this information, if there's any good news that came out of the pandemic, it's that it's shown light on the things that are blocking women from the workforce. With childcare has always been an issue, affordable, accessible childcare. But now our business leaders, our policymakers, our legislature are all focusing on affordable, accessible childcare as an economic issue and not just as a family decision to make. The pandemic impacted the workforce for everybody, but the return to work is heavily influenced by parental status and gender, as you can see by this chart. Non-parents, the light green is men, the dark green is women. So non-parents, women have gotten back into the workforce even a little bit higher than men. But parents, women who are parents, you can see that return to the workforce has been impacted. And we can only guess that it is mainly due to childcare, affordability and accessibility. You know, there's a lot of ways that employers can try to remove barriers for working women and parents. And these are things that we are focused on at the Women's Commission. Assistance with childcare, and Courtney's going to talk a little bit later about the TriShare pilot program that we've implemented. paid leave, predictive scheduling, flexible scheduling, and pay equity. And these are all issues that we are focused on, that we are diving into and making recommendations, and will make recommendations to the governor, to other state departments, and to the legislature on how these issues can be tackled. So this coming year, so fiscal year, starting in October of this year through the end of next year, or the end of September next year, the commission is going to be focused on three things. We are going to launch a women's economic recovery tour with the governor and other members of her cabinet in March. And that'll probably go through the summer, where we'll be touring back through the places that we hit during the conversations that we had at the end of 2019 with women. And then also including some other areas that we weren't able to get to because of the pandemic stopped our conversations. We have also just received a grant from the Department of Labor, Women's Bureau, Department of Labor, Federal Department of Labor, Fostering Access, Rights, and Education. And we have launched the TriShare childcare pilot with funds from the that were awarded by the state legislature, as well as some private funds. And Courtney will get into that in just a minute. And I'll tell you a little bit about the FAIR grant. So we'll be partnering with three organizations: Mothering Justice, Detroit Disability Power, and United Way for Southeastern Michigan. We're going to focus on underserved and marginalized low-income women workers, with a focus of women of color and women with disabilities. And our aim is to build a knowledge base of the benefits and rights that are afforded women, or everyone, and the resources available to Michigan's working women, and disseminate this information through webinars, social media campaigns, direct contact. So these organizations will help us reach these women with direct contact where they normally go, where they are. And our goal, one of our goals out of this, is to sign up 50,000 families for the child care state subsidy. So we've got some hefty goals there. And that is what we will be working on and focusing on. And another thing with childcare that we were focused on advocating for heavily with the legislature, our commissioners got involved, calling their legislators and advocating for the passage of the $1.4 billion in federal funds, the ARP dollars, to expand childcare. That was successful with a bipartisan passage of this $1.4 billion to spend in FY 2022 to stabilize the childcare businesses. So to give the current childcare businesses, and treat these businesses like businesses. So childcare providers, I believe it's about 95% are female-owned small businesses. 40% of those are women of color. So funds will be awarded to these small businesses to prop up and build their businesses and help them to be able to expand. The eligibility for the child care subsidy was expanded so that approximately 105,000 more Michigan families can access subsidized care. And so that makes childcare more affordable. And we also need to prop up our childcare providers and pay them a living wage. So that is another piece of that legislation, and how that $1.4 billion will be paid for. So Courtney's going to go into a little bit. I'll stop sharing right now. And Courtney's going to go into the specifics of the TriShare childcare pilot. But I'll stop here and see if anyone has questions about the Michigan Women's Commission and our work generally right now.
So we haven't had any questions come in yet, Cheryl, via the chat, but while Courtney's getting things set up, I was actually wondering, the one slide where you had the 4 kind of pillars of work for the commission, and I think, you had
Take it back.
gender equity and pay, you had different types of scheduling. Is there any chance you could go into a little bit more detail about what kind of feedback you've gotten during the interviews that you've done, and kind of where women are at, and I think also importantly from an employer's perspective, like if there's any practices they could be doing to encourage, gender equity and pay and things like that.
Sure. So I'm trying to find that slide.
That's the one. Yep.
Yeah. So, assistance with childcare, the Try-Share pilot, which you're going to hear a little bit about, is one way that employers can get involved and assist with their employees' childcare to make it more affordable for them. Paid leave, that is huge. Governor Whitmer, when she was elected, almost right away made the state of Michigan an example by executive order. She said that this executive order said that all state employees will have paid parental leave, and she is leading by example. That is certainly something that employers can enact. That would be really, really go a long way to helping their employees with their caretaking responsibilities, whether it be with parents or children, etc. Predictive scheduling, we're hearing this a lot from women, which is especially women in the service industry. And we know that the women who dropped out of the workforce, a good number of them are dropped out from those forward-facing service industry jobs. And now we're hearing, not just now, it's been ongoing, but we're really hearing about predictive scheduling. And it's a way that employers don't call someone last minute and ask them to come in, set their schedules well in advance and stick with that, which really will lead to more, from studies and from data, more retention and of employees, more loyalty from employees, and mainly more retention of employees. Flexible scheduling, are you allowing your your employees to work from home, or do some kind of flex schedule? That is an issue that women have flagged for us is really important to them. And then pay equity. So there has been a 12-bill package that has been introduced every year for several years now in the Michigan legislature to promote pay equity. And one thing that the Women's Commission, and it goes nowhere, it has gone nowhere. One thing that the Women's Commission is focused on right now is to look at policy that can be implemented at the state level, either by the governor or by departments, to move the needle on some of these pay equity issues without legislative action. Things like, so another thing that the governor did by example, by executive order when she was elected, was to HR directors or HR folks in the state of Michigan cannot ask, as they're interviewing people and hiring people, they can't ask what their previous salary was. And if every employer in the state did that one thing, that would go a very long way to closing the pay gap. So I hope that helps.
Very helpful. Thank you. And I'll just note that Allison did drop the presentation. So the PowerPoint slides are in the chat now, and folks can download those so you can play along at home while Cheryl and Courtney are finishing up today's presentation. So yeah, I believe let's hand things off to Courtney. And it's just as a reminder, if you do have questions for either Cheryl or Courtney, drop them in the chat. We're paying attention. Okay, thanks.
Just want to confirm, and that could be with like a thumbs up or anything that you all can see my slides. Great, thank you. So I'm Courtney. I'm excited to talk to you all today, and I'll be talking about the My TriShare Childcare Pilot Program. So that is a mouthful, so we call it TriShare for short. And it really is an innovative public-private partnership that aims to equally share the cost of childcare between employers, employees, and the state of Michigan. So TriShare really came out of conversation with the Grand Rapids Chamber of Commerce and other business leaders, as well as with the support of the governor and Representative Van Workum and the MWC to really launch it and get it up and running. The pilot was initially launched in March of this year with $1.1 million of funding to support the work of 3 pilot regions, which I'll talk a little bit more about in a few slides here. One of the cool things and excited things about this program is that it's the first of its kind in the country. So we're really hoping that it will serve as a national model for an innovative way that affordable and accessible childcare can be addressed. We currently have 3 pilot regions with organizations that serve as facilitator hubs. So you'll hear that word a lot. And the hub serves as a central liaison or central point for employers, employees, and the state of Michigan in order to administer the pilot. So a little bit more about the model and how it works. So as you see here, an organization serves as a facilitator hub and interfaces with the state, employers, and employees in order to collect childcare payments or 1/3 of the childcare payment and give it to the childcare provider. So the hub really serves as a helpful liaison point for families if they're in need of licensed childcare, as well as facilitating and administrating all of the pieces of the program for childcare providers. So a little bit more about the hubs that we currently have. We have 3. United Way of Northwest Michigan is currently serving a 10-county rural region in Northwest Lower Michigan. Goodwill Industries of West Michigan is currently serving a 6-county region in West Michigan. And the Saginaw Intermediate School District is currently serving the Great Lakes Bay region. So as part of the budget that was recently passed that Cheryl was talking about earlier is $2.5 million additional dollars to TriShare for the expansion of current service regions and for funding new hubs. So because of these additional funds, we were able to expand our current service regions to the ones that I just talked about prior, which allowed us to serve 24 counties instead of 14 counties. So we got 10 more counties added to the current region, to the current service regions. And we just released a request for proposals or RFP that's posted currently on the website. And at the end of the presentation, we'll share some of those details too, to fund 4 new hubs with state funding. And the deadline for that is November 17th. In addition, in partnership with the W.K. Kellogg Foundation, 2 new hubs will be onboarded next year. And those are Mothering Justice, serving Wayne County, and Battle Creek Shared Services Alliance, which will be serving Calhoun County. So just a little bit more about TriShare and the timeline for how things have come to be for the current moment. TriShare was launched in March when those 3 service regions were awarded the funds in order to administer the pilot. And for the next 3 months after that, so from March to June, there was a lot of getting the pilot up and running off the ground. So lots of problem solving with the current facilitator hubs and other subject matter experts to determine enrollment processes, eligibility processes, tax benefits, finalizing systems for payments, etc. Hubs also created their documents for enrollment, including MOUs, marketing materials, as well as outreach and engagement with employers and employees to be a part of the program. Guidelines were also created to guide decision-making, and policies and procedures were finalized. So those first 3 months were really the time that it took to be able to get the pilot off the ground. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about the guiding priorities of the pilot because they really do shape a lot of the decision-making that happens under TriShare. So the first one is the prioritizing family choice of childcare. So TriShare is not really going to, try to enforce certain childcare providers for families. Families really are guiding that process for themselves, keeping in mind what best suits their needs, what best suits their child needs, and what best suits their family. So we really prioritize that choice throughout the implementation of the program. In addition, one of the main priorities of TriShare is helping the asset limited income constrained employed, or the ALICE population. So just a little bit of background about ALICE, just in case anybody is unfamiliar. So ALICE is a term coined by the United Way, and it's a way of capturing people who may not be adequately captured as needing assistance with the federal poverty level. So because of a variety of different costs like childcare, food, transportation, healthcare, et cetera, a lot of the times people may be above the federal poverty level, but still may need assistance or are living paycheck to paycheck. So because of that, ALICE really captures some of those folks. And in order to really address that, we have TriShare eligibility for people who are above 185% of the federal poverty level, and that's right at the cutoff for CDC subsidy, up until 285% of the federal poverty level, in hopes of catching folks who may be right above that subsidy eligibility threshold, but may still need some assistance with childcare on a monthly basis. Facilitator hubs are so central to the implementation and administration of the program. They determine eligibility, they administer the program in order to alleviate the burden of having to collect these funds from employers or employees. So hubs really make this happen. They really are the ones on the ground answering questions for employers and employees and really trying to administer the program in a smooth way that will hopefully eliminate some of that burden on employees and employers. Another aim is to help childcare providers secure slots through this program, through participation in the program, as well as assist employers with retention and attraction of employees. So just to tell you a little bit about our current enrollment status, which we're really excited about, we currently have 20 employers who have signed on across all hubs, and that number keeps growing every month, so we're very excited about that. Employers represent big and large businesses as well as small businesses from a variety of industries, including manufacturing, agriculture, healthcare, and childcare, and civil and social organizations. We currently have 8 employees enrolled in the program, and that number also continues to rise, which we're also very excited about. And lastly, I just want to go over some next steps for the program and where we see it heading in the next fiscal year. So for current hubs, because of this new funding, we were able to expand the pilot from being a 12-month pilot to an 18-month pilot. So instead of ending in March, it will be ending in September of 2022. And hubs continue to have monthly meetings with subject matter experts in order to foster collaboration across the hubs, as well as to help with problem solving. For new potential hubs, like we talked about, we will have 4 new hubs that will be chosen from the RFP application pool that will be supported with state funding. And that will raise our number of hubs to 6 new hubs. So from 3 to 9, that will hopefully all go until September of 2022 as well. If you're interested in learning more about the program, we do try our best to keep people updated with monthly status reports that can be found on our website, which our next slide, I know I keep referencing the website, and I promise the next slide will have that information. And there you can find a list of all of our previous status reports, which come out on a monthly basis, as well as continue to access them in the future. And lastly, we'll have an external evaluation of the pilot from an outside evaluator at the end of the pilot, so somewhere around this time next year, in order to evaluate some of the major outcomes that we're hoping for in the pilot. And that you could also find on our website during that time. All right, so if you would like to know more, Cheryl, this is her contact information, and as well as our website information here, michigan.gov/TriShare, where you can find a lot of the information that we talked about today.
Okay, thank you, Courtney. And for the record, Cheryl actually dropped the link into the chat to get to the TriShare website. So shockingly, this has been a very subdued audience today. Normally we have things, normally by now we have some things popping off, but it is pretty quiet in the chat right now. I know as you were talking about the rollout of the pilot and bringing in the new hubs, one question that came to mind, also recognizing, kind of looking at the participants that we have on today's call, we got kind of a mix of frontline staff and managers. So can you give some guidance, I guess, from kind of both sides of that coin of if you're a manager and you have an employee coming to you, what's the next step? Who do you need to talk to? And if you're an employee, are there resources available to kind of arm or equip employees to go to their supervisors and say, hey boss, I was on this webinar today. I heard about this cool program. Here's some information you should check out. I think our staff would appreciate if we would participate.
Yeah, those are great questions. So we do have some informational things that can be accessed on the website, and that is something that either an employer or an employee can access at any time. Just kind of a brief description of what TriShare is, how we hope that it could benefit people who participate, including employers, employees, and providers, and some more information about those guiding priorities. So that information will always be accessible. If you are an employer who is interested in participating in the pilot, one of the first things to probably check is whether there is a facilitator hub serving your region. So hubs are kind of enroll people who are a part of their participating counties. And that information can also be found on the website. And if you are, I'm sure hubs part of what they do is talk with employers on a regular basis about TriShare, how they might enroll TriShare in their business, how they might go about recruitment of employees. So hubs are really there to serve that purpose for employers. So if employers are interested, part of what the hubs do, like I said, they really make this happen. So part of what they do is talk to interested folks about it. So you can always contact hub facilitators, and their contact information can also be found on the website. If you're an employee who's interested, I'm sure you can also talk to hub facilitators, so that resource is there. But if you would like to, be equipped with that, we have a one-page flyer that really summarizes TriShare and talk about the possibility of doing that with your employer. That could be something you could do if you feel comfortable doing that. However, you can also kind of equip. Sometimes hub facilitators will serve that function for interested employees who may not feel comfortable necessarily, approaching their employers with that information. So we have heard that happen, really, hub facilitators kind of serving as a voice for people in that regard. If the business or employee/employer that want to participate are in that county region that the hub facilitates. I will also say, if you are interested, and right now there aren't, your current region is not represented in the current 3 hubs. Like I said, we'll have 6 new hubs. So it's possible that by January that will be updated. So not that I know we all have things probably aligned for January, because New Year's bring like all hopes and dreams. But I would say to check in on our website around that time, and we might have updates there as well. But if any of those avenues don't work, I'm always happy to answer questions as well. So my information can also be found on the website. So feel free to email me or any of the other administrative team members for TriShare.
Perfect, thank you. Any chance we can get a teaser as to what 6 regions of the state will likely be participating, or too early to tell?
Too early to tell. So it's actually
Okay.
that I don't have that information. Other than the 2 new ones in Wayne County and Calhoun County, those 2 are part of the 6, and the other
Okay.
4 will be chosen from the RFP application pool. So
Gotcha, okay.
Yeah, and I don't
Um,
know if Courtney mentioned that. I know I mentioned it, and I may have missed it in Courtney's presentation, but the Mothering Justice in Wayne County and Battle Creek Shared Services in Calhoun County, those pilots are funded with private foundation dollars from the Kellogg Foundation.
So I think the last question that I have, and again, surprising, kind of keeping tabs on the chat. Everybody's very quiet today. I'm going to chalk it up to it's a weird Monday, and it's the first Monday of daylight savings time, or not daylight savings time. I don't know. We had this debate in our house yesterday. What status we're in? It's unclear. All we know is time has changed and everything's thrown off. If folks are interested in, and Cheryl, I know you referenced that there's a community forum in Flint coming up in the very near future. Are there other opportunities for people to plug in to the work of the Women's Commission aside from, I think you said that forum was tomorrow or later this week.
Yep. Tomorrow we have quarterly meetings, public meetings. So tomorrow is our last public meeting of 2021, and then January 25th is our next meeting, and that will be held in Lansing. And they're always 1 to 3 on a Tuesday. And those dates are on our website for the next year's quarterly meeting. So we welcome public to attend. And contact me if anybody thinks of questions afterwards, or Courtney. But feel free to contact me at any time. And one thing that I didn't mention that I don't think I mentioned it, but as we were having those, as the Women's Commission was having those conversations around the state in late 2019 and 2020, early 2020, affordable housing was a priority, again, going along with all the economic security issues, especially on the west side of the state, just FYI. And there is something that may be interesting to folks is that we have a summary of all of those conversations, what came out of each location on the website as well. So you can see in Detroit, what did the women list as their priorities? In Traverse City, what did the women list as their priorities, et cetera. It's pretty interesting. But again, affordable, accessible childcare at the top of the list, and that was before the pandemic.
Yeah. Feels like it's just like you said, it's like shone a light on the things which we knew before the pandemic, but it's just the gap is just so much wider now.
That's right.
Yeah. So I see Courtney is chatting with one of our attendees. Sounds like we've got somebody in the Flint area who might be coming to your forum tomorrow. So there we go, serendipity. Okay, I just do a quick scan. I don't think there's anything else in the chat. So I think, oh, actually, okay. So we just had a question come up. Is the Women's Commission looking for any supports to expand the childcare workforce?
The Women's Commission specifically is not working on that, but with the $1.4 billion in federal funds, that is part of where the spending will go to increase the pay and recruit childcare workers and train childcare workers. So that is something that will be happening with that $1.4 billion.
Let's give it another minute or so. Let's see if there's any more questions. Everybody, it's kind of funny. You never know with these presentations how the questions are going to flow, and it feels like everything's kind of coming in here. folks are kind of processing the information now and thinking of their questions. So we'll give it another minute or so. Again, Courtney, not to put you on the spot, but recognizing, a pilot as a pilot, and we do those to kind of test the waters and see if, if the program has legs. Is there any indication at this point, once the pilot kind of run its course, if what the TriShare will look like kind of post-pilot phase, or is, again, too early to tell, kind of waiting to see what the participation looks like and kind of what the feedback is from participants?
Yeah, definitely the latter. So I think a large chunk of it will be from that evaluation, really hearing from people who participated and, what was great, what do you think could be improved, what will make this easier, to really help with scaling the program as is, but also hopefully at the end, some recommendations for thinking about how it might be expanded. So one thing that has already been implemented, luckily, because of that CDC rise in eligibility, is expansion of eligibility of TriShare. So one thing we were hearing a lot about is that eligibility criteria. So we were able, luckily, to do that because of that CDC rise. But I think things like that are things that have come up so far, but hopefully at the end, with everyone's voices involved, particularly like highlighting those who participated, we would be able to really make some recommendations for how it might look like in the future.
Right. So with that, I don't see any additional comments or questions in the chat. So I think your presentation has run its course today. So I thank both Cheryl and Courtney for joining us. This is fascinating stuff. Like we just said, I think we all knew that these dynamics were in play even before the pandemic. Obviously, the pandemic has widened all these gaps. So it's good for folks to be connected to the work that y'all are doing. So huge thanks to both of you. Yeah, huge thanks to you, both of you, and the other commissioners that are driving this work forward. And yeah, Courtney, I guess we'll have to see if we can arrange a follow-up once you announce those 6 additional hubs. So maybe we can, once you have a press release or something, we can share with our attendees today, so we can let them know when the new sites are up and running. Given some thought to that when you said, oh yeah, by the next couple of months we'll have, we'll have all these new places. It's like, okay, yeah, we can help get the word up about that. So
that would be great. I can definitely be sure to send that to you. And also just wanted to say thank you for having us today.
Yeah, absolutely. So
thank you, and thank you for the work the coalition does.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah. So with that, I'm going to see if I can share our next event that we have. Oh, it's just all crazy on my computer. Okay. So we are having our next campaign sponsored training that Micah is hosting on November 15th. It's the Neurobiology of Trauma Session 2. This was requested after we had Neurobiology of Trauma Session 1 in like March and April. So I will put the link to sign up for that in the chat, as well as I will put in 2 links in case you want to become a member of Micah. So that is the way that we are able to pay to provide these free trainings for you. We have one at least once a month, sometimes more. So we would love it if you could become a member. And if you want to be added to our mailing list so you don't miss any of these webinars or any other information going on, you can email me. I just put my information in the chat as well for you. So with that, I thank everyone for coming today, for giving us your time, because I know everyone is super busy. And I especially want to thank Cheryl and Courtney for providing their expertise and all the work that they're doing, and Jason for being a great facilitator. So with that, I will end our webinar and hope to see everybody on the 17th at Neurobiology of Trauma Part 2. Thanks so much. Have a great day.